All right, we're going to do a quick overview, very basic overview of options while I continue to try and trade at the same time. Okay. So you have call options and put options. Call options give you the right to buy something at a strike price. Put options give you the right to sell something at a strike price. So the way I use options is as a hedging tool. So let's say I own 1 Bitcoin. If I think Bitcoin might go down, I can buy a put option at a strike price, which essentially lets me sell it at that price. So I'm basically buying insurance. So basically, we look at this table, and options expire. They have to expire, because if they didn't expire, then you would never know. You'd basically hold on to the right to buy or sell the thing forever. And then if it ever hit the price where it's in profit, you'd be able to make money. So let's look at this table. This is this is Binance. They have options now. But it's the same on Deribit and most of the other platforms. FTX is a little bit different, but we're going to use this. So this is the date that the options expire. So this is going to be May 7th. So in a few days. This is the strike price. On the left, calls. On the right, puts. Okay? This is so options trade on an exchange, on an order book, just like an asset does, just like any asset. So you'll have to ignore the running water. So basically, you have people buying and selling them at a fair market price. So the supply and demand determines the price. They're not fixed. The value of the options is defined by the market. So if we look at puts, for example, we can look at a strike price. So if we look at, we're currently trading at 54.5K. So that is in between here. So that means that if we're looking at puts, all of these puts are going to be in the money already, because they give you the right to sell Bitcoin at the price of the strike. Okay? So 56K. Well, look, Bitcoin is trading below 56K. So if you were to sell Bitcoin at 56K, you would actually be making the difference between the market price and the strike price. Does that make sense? Any questions? This is like basic option stuff. This is like all of the simple stuff. So if I wanted to, for example, if I wanted to protect my spot Bitcoin, I could go into this. So each row in this table is a contract, okay? It's a type of contract. It's a contract to buy or sell a put or a call option at this strike. So if I actually click on one of these, it'll take me to the page where this particular contract is being traded. You can see the actual, wow, the liquidity is pathetic. You can see the actual contract here, trading on the market, right? Just like anything trades, okay? The index price, well, the mark price uses like special formulas to figure out what a fair price would be. Yes, I can send a page. This is the... Okay. So if you actually look at the graph, you can actually see the price of the option changing. Okay? So a put option is a bet that if you buy a put, you're betting that Bitcoin's going to go down. You pay a premium, a one-time fee of whatever the option's trading at, and then that gives you the right to sell Bitcoin at the strike price. So in this case, we are looking at strike. Where does it show the strike? Oh, here we go. 54,000. Okay. So here's the way to think about it. For about $1,100 per Bitcoin, you can sell Bitcoin at $54,000 guaranteed on May 7th. No matter what Bitcoin is, okay? No matter what Bitcoin price is, if you pay $1,100, $1,200 right now, you can sell one Bitcoin at $54,000 on May 7th. That means if Bitcoin goes to $44,000, this is a put. We're looking at puts. The reason we're looking at puts is because I use puts to hedge my Bitcoin. And even though calls are more intuitive for maybe speculators, I think that put options are actually more useful. I'm going to go to Deribit because I actually think it might be a little bit better to understand. But it's the same idea. You have a table of options. Okay? So here we go. Let's try this again on Deribit. Here are the expiration dates. So you decide, we can look at the same, 7th of May. Yeah, that's trading at a high value because it's already so far in the money. In other words, it already has value from the actual fact that 70 minus 54 is a positive number. In other words, the option has its own value, but then there's also value from the fact that so the put expires worthless when it expires. A put expires worthless when the price is above the strike price. So for example, let's go back to this $54,000 option, okay? So if we look at this, if you bought this, you would pay about $1,100. It's about the same price. And you would be able to sell a Bitcoin for $54,000 on May 7th. Okay? If Bitcoin trading at $56,000 on May 7th, the option is considered worthless. It would expire worthless. And that's simply because the holder of the option would have no interest. You don't have to exercise the option. You only exercise the option if it's in the money, if it would make you money. Okay? Does that make sense? So I guess I'm trying to just sort of explain all the different things, and maybe it'll click. Some of the things will click that people have different parts of the puzzle that are missing. So Deribit is the only liquid options market in crypto. So you pay $1,100, and it gives you the right but not the obligation to sell one Bitcoin at $54,000 on May 7th, 2021. Should Bitcoin go to $44,000, you would very much enjoy taking advantage of your option on May 7th. Even if no matter what, you would be more than happy to sell. Like if somebody asked you today, hey, would you like to sell me a Bitcoin for $70,000? Everyone would say yes. Even if you don't have a Bitcoin, you'd say yes. If somebody walked into my house and offered to sell me a Bitcoin for $70,000, I would go and find money and buy a Bitcoin and then sell it to the guy for $70,000. I'd sell my car to buy a Bitcoin and sell it to him for $70,000. Right? So the point is that as long as your option is in profit, you're obviously going to take advantage of it. You would simply take money, the logic would be that you would just take money on hand and buy the spot to sell to the higher price that your option gives you the right to. In my girlfriend's car, exactly. Okay? So if you think about a put option that way, what I could do, let's say I have 10 Bitcoin, okay? Just imagine I have 10 Bitcoin. For 10 times about 10. So for about $10,000, $11,000, I could buy enough put options to cover my entire $10,000 Bitcoin portfolio from now until May 7th, 2021. No matter what happens, I will lock in at least $54,000 per Bitcoin. I pay a premium, and I get sort of an insurance policy from now until May 7th. You can think about it like insurance. I would be buying about 3 or 4 days worth of insurance, guaranteeing me the right to lock in $54,000, not the obligation, but the right. And I would pay a premium, just like you pay a premium on your car insurance, okay? It's not free. No one is going to sell me this for free because they know that they can only lose money. If it weren't for the premium, no one would sell options to you. Because an option, once you take out the premium, the option can only cost the seller money. So option sellers rely on the premium. Their bet is that the premium will be worth more than the final expiration value. Right? So that's why they cost money up front. Because once you pay for the option, after you consider the premium, you can't lose any more money. The only thing you can do as a buyer of an option is lose the premium. Does that make sense? So, if I wanted to cover a $10,000 portfolio, a 10 Bitcoin portfolio, I have 10 Bitcoin. For $11,000, I could buy 10 of these puts at 54K, and for the next 4 days, no matter what happens, I can't lose more than how much I'd make at 54K per Bitcoin. This is not probably a good bargain. You're very likely to, well, it depends on what you think. 10 Bitcoin is worth about $550,000. So for something like a 2% risk, you can guarantee a certain price for the next coming days. Now, the benefit of an option over shorting is that if Bitcoin goes up and your option ends up not making you any money, you don't lose any more than the premium. You don't have to worry about a stop loss. You don't have to worry about risk management. You don't have to worry about anything. You are simply buying an insurance policy on your spot. Okay? Does that make sense? No, the premium is here. The top. Okay, so the one other thing you have to understand is they trade. Their price is determined. That is determined by the market. The market, they trade on an exchange, just like any asset does. So that means that their value is determined by the fair value of the market. That means there's a bid price and an ask price, just like there's a bid and an ask for any market, okay? So in order to actually buy these options, there'd have to be enough liquidity. As it turns out, Deribit has liquidity. Unlike most options markets, you can actually buy 20 of these contracts from their market maker. I'm sure this is their market. There's no way. Options are so illiquid in crypto. This is their market maker. But Deribit's markets are thick. 54K is the strike. That is the price at which you are locking in the value, okay? 54K is the price you're locking in. It's the insurance price. The premium is the price you pay for that insurance, okay? It's like if you buy a car. Your car has a certain amount of value. Let's say you buy a $30,000 car, okay? Yes, each contract is for 1 Bitcoin, yes. You buy a $30,000 car. You can buy different levels of insurance on that car. That is exactly right. You're paying 1K per Bitcoin for insurance from 54K from now until May 7th. It's a lot of different things to keep track of, but for the next 4 days, you're locking in $54,000 for 3 days for $1,000 per Bitcoin. That's how it works. Yes, I need to make an account, which is I can't really do right now. But it really is as simple as buying the asset. Yeah, we'll do a follow-up and I'll make a testnet. Okay, fine. Let me just make a testnet account. Hang on. Oh no, then I have to send money from the testnet faucet. I'll have to do it later. For now, you're just gonna have to listen to me, and then we'll do a review later. Okay, so the call option's the same concept, but in reverse. So that is a great question, CACB. So you actually don't have to lock. You do not have to necessarily have all of the value on the exchange. So this is where things get confusing. You ready? It's about to get worse. I hope you understood that, because it's about to get worse. So there's, hold on a second. Okay, so there's two types of value. Yeah, Bitcoin looks quite suspect, but let's see how it closes. I'm going to just stick with my positions for now. There's two types of value, okay? There is the, I'm trying to figure out what are the words that they use? The intrinsic value. Okay? So there's the intrinsic value. No, not time value. There's the intrinsic value, and then there is basically, I guess it's the extrinsic value or the time value, theta. Yeah, it's extrinsic is fine. So the intrinsic value is essentially the value that the option has without considering the future. Okay, let me try this again. The simple definition is the implied volatility. The intrinsic value is the value given by simply the difference between the strike price and the trading price, the last trade, or however it expires. We'll just say last trade. Okay. So imagine this. No, focus. We're talking about options, Camden. Imagine this. Imagine you want to buy a put option at $58,000. Okay? $58,000 strike price, right? But the trading price of Bitcoin is let's say it's $54,000. Okay? So you might think to yourself that the value of the option is $58,000 minus $54,000, which is a $4,000 value. But that's just the extrinsic value. That's not the whole picture. If I wanted to sell you this option, I would ask for more than $4,000. The reason is because there's value. So here's another way to think about it. If you extrapolate this, 58,000 minus 54,000, if I were to sell you this option, $58,000 strike for a put at $4,000, if we extrapolate that, now what if you asked me for a price of $54,000 for a put? Well, if I apply the same logic of 58,000 minus 54,000, aka the strike price minus the last trade price, and I quote you that as 4,000, well, what's the strike price minus the last trade if they're both $54,000? It's zero. So would I sell you a 54,000 strike put for $0? Of course not. because there is no chance that you could lose. And an option, remember, is just the right, not the obligation. So if I were to sell you it for free, then you would obviously take it. It would be like free insurance. You'd never be able to lose money. So that makes you think, so how, there's something else going on here, right? Does that make sense? This is not the full picture. So there's this extrinsic value. This is the value. It's usually determined by this implied volatility. Essentially, it's the value in the contract that is not derived from the strike price. Well, it's partially derived from the strike price, but what it's really derived from is basically how volatile you think the asset is, and how much value that is. So the more volatile an asset, the more likely it is to either end up in the money, like, okay, so look at volatility, okay? Let's do some examples. Imagine a few scenarios, okay? Imagine a strike price here for some asset. This is the strike price. I'm afraid of being stop hunted. I don't use stops. Can't get stop hunted if you don't use stop losses. Okay. This is the strike price for some asset. Now imagine a low volatility asset. Okay? It does this. Doesn't do anything. Okay? That means that, let's say there's a 50% chance. Let's say there's a 50% chance it closes in the money. This is a put. So there's a 50% chance it closes in the money, and there's a 50% chance it closes out of the money. If it closes out of the money, the option has 0 value. Okay? So if it closes out of the money, the option has 0. And if it closes in the money, the option ends up with the last trade price minus the strike price. So here, okay? So this is the expected value then is in the middle of these two. Does that make sense? So if you imagine there's a 50% chance of it expiring here or here, then on expiration, the expected value is going to be right in between those two. Now imagine a new asset, a highly volatile asset, okay, with a strike price here, okay, and it's going like this. Woo! Okay, same thing, 50% chance it expires here, 50% chance it expires here. Well, if it expires here, the value is 0, okay? And if it expires here, the value is where it expires. Now you can see that the expected value then for the option is going to be higher because it's more volatile, okay? So the expected value is the difference between, well, okay, the value of the option at expiry is the difference between the last trade and the strike, but it's the absolute value of that if it's in the money, okay? So that means, does that make sense? So the more volatile an asset is, the more you expect it to be worth something, the option to be worth something. So an extremely volatile asset is going to have, and this is a put, right? An extremely volatile asset may have an expected value somewhere in here. That's a much larger magnitude than this tiny thing. Hold on, girlfriend has to get ice. Does that make sense? Any questions? Yeah, cheese wheel, sure. That's a perfectly valid way to look at it. So the problem is you don't know the volatility of an asset. All you can do is guess. So that is what implied volatility is. It's a prediction, okay? It's how much does the market think this thing is volatile. The higher the implied volatility, the higher the price of the extrinsic value. Remember, the intrinsic value is the difference between the strike and the last trade if it's in the money. In the money options, the difference, the price, the value, the intrinsic is the value, the difference, the absolute value of the difference. Out of the money options have 0 intrinsic value. Okay? Implied volatility is the extrinsic value. It's the value that comes from the possibility that the owner of the option could make money. Right? Just like somebody isn't going to sell you a 54K strike with a 54K last trade, they're not going to sell you that for free. So the implied volatility is essentially, you can see here IV. The higher that is, the more the option is going to cost. Okay. Okay. How do you capture the value? Do you have to exercise it, or could you? Okay, so these are all American, European options. Okay, more terms. American options are a type of option that allow you to exercise at any point before expiration or at expiration. European options require you to wait until expiration to exercise the option. However, you can always sell the option back to the market. So in theory, if you wanted to take profit on an option before expiration, if it was in the money, in theory, the market should allow you to sell that option at least the implicit value. Remember, we had the intrinsic value. The intrinsic value plus the extrinsic value is what makes up the price of the option. So in theory, if you're in the money on an option, you should have no trouble selling it before expiration back to a buyer for the profit you would have gotten, at least that profit from locking it in. Now, that is not always true. That is not always true, because sometimes there is inefficiencies, lack of liquidity, or simply weird pricing that goes on. Sometimes options don't price the way you think. Sometimes they can get really weird. Sometimes what can happen is the extrinsic value doesn't always change linear. In fact, it never changes linearly. The extrinsic value decays. The farther into the money an option goes, the less extrinsic value it has. Because it's, so here's another way. Okay, now we're going to go back to this class. Okay. Imagine an asset, okay, with a strike price here for an option. Okay, here's the strike price. Now imagine the asset is trading all the way down here. This option has a very low chance of expiring out of the money for a put. Okay, this is a put. So that means that it's basically just trading at the same value as the asset. It's just the difference. The extrinsic value becomes virtually worthless because there's such a small chance it's going to expire out of the money. So you really are just trading Bitcoin at this point, okay? The price is going to be almost entirely intrinsic because there's such a small chance that it will expire out of the money. So the farther an option goes into the money, the lower the intrinsic value, the extrinsic value, the lower the implied volatility matters, the lower the value of the option from an extrinsic standpoint, because basically the intrinsic value just becomes the dominant factor and the chance of expiring out of the money becomes so low. Questions? Yeah, we're going to get to the Greeks. We're almost at the Greeks. Just hang on. We'll get to the Greeks in just a sec. Okay, no questions. Cool. Okay, so we're gonna do call. We'll do calls really quickly. The call option is the inverse. Why are there no volumes? It's for the opposite reason. For the opposite reason, Boldovan, because options at extremes have the lowest volume because they're the most likely to basically, well, especially options that are way out of the money. The chance Sorry, okay, I'm thinking of the opposite way. So the options that are, these puts that are really high, people who, there really is no value in trading these because they're so unlikely to hit. So you might as well just trade Bitcoin. Does this make sense? This is basically the value here. You can extract the same exact position value, the same exact market exposure from the value of these highly priced puts or highly striked puts by simply trading a liquid Bitcoin market. So there's really no reason to trade these. They're illiquid. They are probably slightly overpriced. There's almost no chance that they expire out of the money. They're basically just, I think I misspoke and said they were, did I say they were out of the money or in the money? They're highly in the money, meaning that they're basically just Bitcoin for the same reason I just showed. They basically, the value here, the exposure, not only would nobody sell them, but the exposure you get from buying them is the same exposure you can get from simply longing or shorting Bitcoin futures. So not only is no one going to sell them, there's no value in buying them. If you wanted to buy this, simply short Bitcoin. There, you might as well, the value of this put from buying this put is the same as just shorting Bitcoin. Just short Bitcoin. You're basically getting the same thing, only this is on a highly illiquid market. No, because remember the value of this option, if you bought, okay, this option, $70,000 strike, is going to cost you at least $70,000 minus $54,000. So at the very least, you're going to pay $16,000 for this option. Okay? At the very least, you'll pay $16,000 for this option. So if you buy this, that's for $16,000. Well, if Bitcoin goes up to $70,000, you lose $16,000 because the option expires worthless, and you paid $16,000 for the privilege of owning the option. Just like if you shorted one Bitcoin at $54,000 and that contract went to 70, you'd also lose $16,000. So you end up with the same result. Now, it gets different when the price of Bitcoin goes above 70,000. That's when the option outperforms shorting. It is, yes, it's an open market. It's peer-to-peer, but they have to use their own market makers because no one sells them. But you can sell options, naked or covered. We're going to talk about that in a second. Does that make sense? Okay, cool. And remember, there still is some extrinsic value in this option. This $70,000 put should in theory cost you at least $16,000 because the intrinsic value is 16 and the extrinsic value is some number above 0. So you are going to pay 16,000 plus X, 16,000 plus some positive X for this option. If the price of Bitcoin goes to $70,000, you're going to lose at least $16,000 because the option will expire worthless. The only time that buying this $70,000 put outperforms simply shorting Bitcoin would be if you were to go to prices above 70,000. At this point, you stop losing money on the put, but you continue to lose money on the short futures, the short perpetual. So if you think that there's a chance that Bitcoin could go to $80,000 in 3 days, then buying a put will outperform shorting futures. Other than that, you might as well just short futures. That is why there is no volume or interest of any kind on these really far in the money options. Okay. Next. Okay, so a call is just the opposite of a put. Okay? A call option is the right to buy at a certain strike. So you have to now flip everything on its head, okay? It's just invert the whole game. So now You see these green here on Deribit? These are considered in the money. Okay? Green is in the money. There is volume, but there's not. Well, also, some of these options used to be. Okay, so there's less volume on the extremes. The volume is concentrated in the middle, around the current trading price. Okay. Yeah, next. Okay, so, yeah, if you're having trouble following, I can't explain all of these things, but I've tried to. I mean, I think I defined every term. Is there terms that people are still having trouble with? This is not a YouTube-like presentation. I haven't prepared a slide deck. I don't have, a list of... If I had time, I'd be able to do a better job of presenting. But anyways, well, that's awesome, Bolivan. I'm glad to hear that. Let me finish. There's still more to it. I wish we were done, but we have one more layer. It's going to get a little bit worse before it gets better. Okay, call options are just the opposite of puts. The right to buy, but not the obligation, at a certain fixed price, at a certain fixed expiry. Remember, these are European options. European options cannot be exercised before expiration. Exercising the option is when you just cash in. You simply execute your right. American options allow you to execute at any point. European options don't. You have to execute or not. You can only execute your option at expiry with Europeans. But remember, you can always sell it back to the market. And if the market's working efficiently, in theory, you should still be able to get the same or more value. Okay? Okay. Call options. Call options. Okay? The opposite. Okay? You pay a premium. So, you can pay... let's do the same 54K. Let's imagine this $54,000. Imagine Bitcoin's trading at $54,000 for 16. Bit is here. No, for about $1,700 per Bitcoin. You can buy Bitcoin. You can buy the right to buy Bitcoin at 54K, meaning that in 3 days, 2 days, 3 days, no matter what the price of Bitcoin is, you have a right to buy it at 54K. If Bitcoin should trade at $58,000 on May 7th, you will take your contract and ask for your right to buy 54K per Bitcoin to be exercised. You will then be able to buy for as many contracts as you own. You can then buy Bitcoin at 54K, turn around and sell it at 58K instantly. Okay? Now, these are actually cash settled, so you don't actually have to do any of this. They automatically will settle for you. But you have to understand why there's value. So you don't actually have to do any of this. The market, the exchange will do it all for you. You automatically will profit. You'll get the profit automatically. But I just want you to understand why there's profit. Okay? In 3 days, you remember you paid $1,600. Okay, so now Blackbird is asking, if I buy a 30K call and I pay 25K for it and the price goes to 30, I just lose 25K. But if the price goes to 20K, I make 10K. The only way you make money is if the price goes under 5K. You're missing something. If the price goes to 30K, you lose. You cannot make money. Okay, so if you buy, you've got to flip it. So the put options are everything is the inverse with calls. $30,000 strike gives you the right to buy a Bitcoin at $30,000 by May 7th, on May 7th. So that means that if Bitcoin goes to $32,000, you will get $32,000 2 minus $30,000 from the option, but you paid $25,000 for it. So you will lose 25 minus 2. If Bitcoin goes to $40,000, you will make $10,000 on the option, but you paid 25, so you'll lose $15,000. If Bitcoin goes to $30,000, you will make 0 on the option, you paid 25, you lose 25. If Bitcoin goes to $20,000, you will make 0 on the option, you paid 25, you lose 25. Essentially, if you bought a 30K strike, you would be longing Bitcoin, but the most you could ever lose would be 25,000. Buying a option with a 25K strike would be just like buying Bitcoin on the futures market, but you have a floor for how much you could ever possibly lose in the worst case scenario. Okay? And for that reason, there exists some, remember that this is the extrinsic versus the intrinsic value. The intrinsic value is the value from Bitcoin itself, the price of Bitcoin minus the strike. So you would be just like longing Bitcoin, but you have a really far away possibility that maybe in the worst case you don't lose as much as you would if you just traded options. No, it's not like a leverage long. It's like a spot long. It's not leveraged in any way. You pay $25,000 for an option that very likely will expire. Let's see, 30. Yeah, so this is a good example because you can see. I don't know. Yeah, so we're going to talk about leverage in a second. We still have to talk about leverage. We have to talk about the Greeks. We have to talk about selling, and we have to talk about spreads, and we have to talk about. I think that's it. Anything else? Selling, naked and covered, Greeks, spreads. That's it. Rolling. Yeah, you can't roll your options in crypto, so it doesn't matter. There's no rolling. You have to do it manually. Leverage. Leverage. Yeah, we gotta talk about leverage too. Okay. Next. So that's how calls work. Okay. This is only buying. So now you have to think, who is selling me this thing? Okay. Who is selling this thing? Buying an option has limited risk because all you can lose is the premium. Selling a naked option has unlimited risk. Selling a naked option is like naked short selling. It's like selling Bitcoin when you own no Bitcoin. It's like going net short. That is what selling a call is like. Selling a call option gives you the same risk as going net short Bitcoin, aka unlimited risk. Okay? Following? So, if I sell one of these bad boys, if I sell a call at $54,000, I can get about $1,600 for it, but I'm obligated to pay an unlimited potential amount of money. If Bitcoin goes to $2 million by May 7th, I will have no choice. I will be obligated to pay $2 million minus $54,000. Is Delta capped? Okay. Oh, you're talking to me? Delta is capped. Yes, I think that's right. Anyways, you weren't talking to me. Moving on. So, 54,000, right? So you can see how there's unlimited risk. Selling a naked put has theoretically unlimited risk unless the asset can't go negative. Because if it can't go negative, then if it went to 0, that's the most you could lose. Next. We good? I need some water. Okay. Okay. I think that's good. Now we can talk about, let's talk about leverage first. Okay? So you may ask yourself, well, okay, so one thing is selling a covered call is essentially when you own Bitcoin. Let's say you have one Bitcoin. You can sell a covered call at $54,000. You will get $1,600 in profit immediately. But you are protected because as the price of Bitcoin goes up, the option gains value, but you gain about the same value from your spot holding. So if Bitcoin goes to $1 million by May 7th, yes, you're on the hook for 1 million minus 54,000. But you also own a Bitcoin, which also went up to $2 million or whatever. So you are protected. Now, you lose all of the value you could have made from owning the asset. So you would only want to sell covered calls as a hedging strategy because you're giving up all of your upside, but you still have downside risk. Remember, the option expires worthless if it's out of the money. Okay? So if you sell a 45K strike call and you don't own and you own one Bitcoin, you will not make any money from the price of Bitcoin going up. But if the price of Bitcoin goes down, you will start losing money. Okay? Because the option isn't going to cover you. You're going to lose money. So you are betting on the premium to make you the money. You don't make money if Bitcoin goes up. You lose money if Bitcoin goes down. The option goes to zero and your Bitcoin starts losing money. So you're trying to hedge by essentially getting the premium. You're capturing the premium. I buy a $45,000 call and the price of Bitcoin increases 1%. The value of my call will increase by 1% of the value, but not 1% of the contract price. That's what I'm getting at. The value of my call will... Well, yeah, but it won't quite because the problem is that the delta, the extrinsic value goes down the farther into the money. If I buy a $4,500 call and the price of Bitcoin increases 1%, value of my call will increase 1%. I'm kind of confused what you're asking, but if you look at the price, okay, you look, here's the spot price, okay? Okay, you got it, cheese wheel. Sorry, yes. I think you know what you're talking about. So I would say that you're right. So over time, this is the price. This is more confusing. Let's just get back to this. Anyways, we'll get into the Greeks in a second. So that's how you sell a covered call. Okay. Naked selling is when you don't own the asset. So that means you have unlimited risk. Just like naked short selling futures. Does that make sense? Naked short selling is when you don't own Bitcoin and you go net short. Short selling otherwise would be considered hedging. If you're hedging, you're still short selling, but you're covered. It's a covered short sell is a hedge. Hedging is a form of hedging. Covered short selling is not a very frequently used term, but technically covered short selling would be hedging. It would be a form of hedging. It's the most common form of hedging in crypto. It's the way I hedge. Covered short selling on futures. Okay? Okay. Now, on... Oh, and leverage... Okay, so if you don't own any Bitcoin, you can still sell futures, or you can still sell options. But now you have unlimited risk. So how do you deal with unlimited risk? The same, how do exchanges deal with unlimited risk with futures? Right? When you short sell, naked short sell Bitcoin futures, perpetual swaps, whatever, more than you own Bitcoin, you have unlimited risk. How do they do how do you deal with unlimited risk? Margin, liquidation, all the good stuff we all know and love. In order to naked sell puts and calls, you need to be using margin. And if you get deep out of the money, or if the option goes deep into the money and you start losing money, you are going to get a margin call eventually, where you either are going to get liquidated or you have to add more collateral. And there's never enough money that will ever guarantee you don't get liquidated because you have infinite risk. So if you're going to naked sell, you have to have a way to mitigate your risk. You have to have a stop loss. You have to be, whatever. This is why almost all of retail buys options, and almost all of the selling side comes from market makers, and they hedge their risk elsewhere. So they're using other things to hedge. They'll buy spot on the market somewhere else. But you don't have to buy spot on the buy side either. You can use leverage to short sell, but you can also use leverage to buy. I don't know if Deribit supports this. I bet it does. I know for a fact that FTX does, though. Remember, in option trades, just like anything does, just like crypto, just like Bitcoin, just like Ethereum, they have a value. Okay? There is a fair value price for the option, given all of the things we've talked about. That means that you can actually use collateral to buy the option with less money than the option costs, and you can get liquidated. It's okay, I'm not really, the long things in chat are hard to read, but yes, anyways, so you can get liquidated by buying options on margin, just like you could get liquidated by selling options. The point is that the only way to naked sell is on margin. When you buy, you can buy spot, where you put the entire capital up front as a premium, or you can buy on margin. FTX does everything on margin. So you have to make sure that you have enough money to buy the option at its full price, or be prepared to deal with the potential of a liquidation. So I recommend you do not buy options on margin. Or if you do, you make sure that it's not really on margin. If you're going to buy it on margin, make sure you have enough margin for the entire premium, because there is a very real chance you'll get liquidated otherwise. And the option markets are not nearly liquid enough to do things like stop losses or any sort of fancy risk tools. So do not buy options with less collateral than the premium, because it's just, that's ridiculous. Yeah, find other ways to cut the price down. Don't buy it on margin. When I say don't buy it on margin, I mean don't buy it with less collateral than the premium. I agree. The whole margin system on FTX is great. Okay, I think we've done leverage, buying. We've got the Greeks. We've got spreads. Ready? Let's look at this one because it has it. Cool. I'm gonna get some water. Give me a second. Quick break. I wanted to find a cheat sheet. Can you see that on stream okay? It's kind of small, isn't it? Hold on. Okay, here we go. Boom. Okay, so there are, we don't really need to worry about row. Let's just do these four, okay? Hold on a second. 1 sec. All right, guys, you ready? Here we go. Okay. So you remember this whole talk about extrinsic and intrinsic value? Right? So in option, okay, we're gonna start with that with delta. So delta is the correlation between basically the options price and the spot price. So for a call option, the price of the option so for a call option, right? Well, delta just means change, yes, but delta is also, I mean, it's a Greek variable too. But delta is usually referencing a difference or a change. Okay. So at a $54,000 strike, so delta is the rate of change. Delta is the amount that the option price changes per dollar of spot price move. Okay. So for every dollar that the spot market moves, how much does the options price move? Okay. That is what delta means. That means, what are you doing, Bitcoin? Okay, so what that means is, so really quickly, what you need to understand is that the deeper in the money the option is, the higher the magnitude of delta. So delta is the magnitude of delta is between 0 and 1. So that means that technically put options have a negative 1 to 0 range, whereas calls would be 0 to 1. But that's because with puts, the price of Bitcoin would be going down, whereas with calls, it's going up. That's when you're going into the money, right? So, so for $54,000 strike, 54K strike, if Bitcoin at this price, you can see, look at this price, $1,600 for one call. Okay, let's look at the calls. $1,600 for one call. We go up $1,000, $55,000. The option doesn't. Reading this right? Right, because the Bitcoin's going down. Sorry, go the other way. 54,000. I'm reversing it in my head. So $54,000. So strike. So the strike for a call is 54K in this case. That means that options that are deeper into the money have a lower strike because the difference between the strike price and the current last trade price is higher. So for example, a $52,000 strike call is more expensive than a $54,000 strike call. That all makes sense, right? We've talked about this. But what's interesting is that it's not different by $2,000. 54,000 minus 52 is 2,000. And yet, the difference in the price of the call is not 2,000. It's like 1,500. You see that? You'll notice that the deeper that you go into the money on the call side, the closer the move is to $1 per option per dollar move on spot to the same as the options price. So the deeper you go into the money, the closer the price of the option moves in sync with the price of Bitcoin. So as you get down to here, 35,000 minus 30 is a $5,000 difference in strike. And as you see, the price of the option changes by almost exactly $5,000. The delta represents how the price of the option moves relative to the price of Bitcoin. So as you can see, we have a delta of about 1 on these calls. Does that make sense? Whereas as you get deeper out of the money, in other words, the delta, as the price becomes more and more dependent on the extrinsic value, in other words, the value from things other than the price, then the delta goes down. You can look up here. Look at this. These options are almost all priced the same because they're just so illiquid and so far in the money, or so far out of the money. So for a $1,000 price move in strike, you basically get the same price for the option. So the delta is basically 0 over here, and the delta is basically 1 up here, and in between, the delta is somewhere in between. So will they show me the delta? How do I see that? But they had an option. Oh, here we go, delta. Yeah, you can literally see it. I'm blind. Look, here's the delta. You want the delta? Here it is, right? No, yeah, cheese wheel. Yeah, I appreciate you supporting chat. It's very hard to explain options with a microphone, and it's infinitely harder to do it with a keyboard. So props to you. The point is that the price, yes, so the nonlinearity, basically the price of the option does not move linearly with the price of the spot market. So this is what I was trying to draw here. Okay, so we're going to say that if you have the price down here, and of this, if you have the strike price I see. If this is, okay, this will be time, just like it always is. If over time, the price of the spot market goes up, you can expect the price of calls to go up as well, but not in parallel. So the price of your calls will go up like this, okay? Until they eventually doing this right? I think I flipped it. Anyways, I'm confusing myself. Anyways, yeah. So all delta is the rate is how in sync the price of the option is relative to the spot market. Okay? So these deep in the money calls, yeah, I am distracted. I'll finish though. These deep in the money calls essentially mean that there's no extrinsic value. It's all intrinsic, and therefore all the intrinsic value moves in sync. So there's nothing else to move. So it just moves in sync. Whereas here, the value becomes more and more reliant on the extrinsic value of the option. And the extrinsic value does not change linearly. And so this is where you get this delta. So this means that this 0.42 means that for every dollar that Bitcoin goes up, expect the option to be worth $0.43 more. For every dollar that the option goes up, for every dollar that the spot price of Bitcoin goes up, this option it will go up about 43 cents. But the delta is not constant. As the price of Bitcoin goes up, the options become farther into the money. And the option, okay, so does that make sense? That's delta. The problem with delta is that delta is not even to the next dollar. I mean, it's infinitely, well, I guess it is to the next dollar. It depends on how you think of it. If you know calculus, you can think of it like at this point, right? So the delta, so delta, I'm going to talk about gamma because it's the same thing. Gamma is the rate of change of delta, right? Okay, so if you've done calculus, basically gamma is the derivative of the delta. This is because as the price of Bitcoin goes up by $1, not only does the price of the option go up by, let's say this option, okay, 54,000. 54,000. Delta's 0.54. But if Bitcoin goes up $1, the option goes up 0.54, but the delta changes too. Okay? That is an issue. As the price of Bitcoin goes up, the delta is going to go up also because the option's deeper in the money. So just like we can look back in Strike to see these options deep in the money, if Bitcoin goes up in value, these options will start going deeper into the money. And as these options go deeper into the money, because the price of Bitcoin goes up, then the delta goes up too, for all the reasons we just talked about. The rate at which the delta goes up for every dollar of Bitcoin is gamma. Gamma is the rate of change of delta. Yes, if you understand calculus, then you can literally think of it as the derivative. The delta changes relative to price, and gamma is the rate of change of delta. And delta is the rate of change okay. Delta is the rate of change of the option price. Gamma is the rate of change of delta. And this is all relative to the price of Bitcoin. Delta is the rate of change of the option. Gamma is the rate of change of delta, all derived relative to the price of Bitcoin per dollar. Make sense? Make sense? Just wait till we talk about spreads. Time for water. I can talk about Max Payne. Okay. No, you should not start learning calculus. No, it will not. I mean, not very helpful. Really, you should just learn risk management instead. Okay, next. Oh, we're almost done, guys, I promise. Okay. So also you have to remember that as time goes down, the option loses value. This is the time decay, okay? This is what theta is. So we talked about delta, we talked about gamma, now theta. Theta is the how the price of the options decay over time. So think about an insurance policy. You buy insurance on your car, okay? If you buy insurance for a year, it's going to cost you, I don't know, $5,000 for a year of insurance. You buy only 6 months of car insurance, it's going to cost less. So essentially, as there's less time till the option expires, the actual value of the option goes down. The intrinsic value stays the same. Remember, the intrinsic value is the strike versus the price. But the extrinsic value is going down because there's less time for anything to happen. Okay? The insurance has less time on it. So there's less of a value in it because it's going to expire sooner. So for example, if I wanted to buy insurance right now at $54,000, I could buy puts that expire in 3 days. But then after 3 days, I no longer have insurance. So if I buy June, let's say I buy these guys, June, I can buy insurance from now till June 21st at $56,000. This is going to cost me wildly more money because I now have incredibly longer time for the insurance. But as time goes on, slowly these insurance will start to come to the same value as these 5th of May ones, all things equal, or 7th of May. As time goes on, time to expiry decreases. All other things equal, you can expect the value of the options to decay. And the rate of decay is theta. Theta is per day, how much do you expect the option to lose value? All other things equal. All other things equal, how much you expect the option to lose value. Good? Lastly, Vega. Vega is, so remember how we talked about how the volatility, we were talking about how the volatility impacts the price? Volatility is the main driving factor behind the extrinsic value of an option. Volatility can change without anything else changing all throughout the day. Yeah, I'm not asked. Yeah, no one should be calculating this stuff by yourself. Yeah. Anyways, I'm reading chat. Okay. You just have to understand how they work. Vega is the for every 1% move. I believe is it 1%. I think. Yeah, per 1% of implied volatility. So remember that volatility, implied volatility, is a projection of how volatile the asset is. All other things equal, you could the prospects, the outlook on volatility could change. So if implied volatility goes up, the price of options will go up because of what we talked about before. There is more value in the option because of. Remember, we did these. We showed how the expected value of a highly volatile market, the expected value is going to be in between there for a put, whereas a super non-volatile asset with a strike price here is going to have an expected value that's much lower in magnitude. Make sense? Okay. Okay. So that means that as implied volatility goes up, the price of the option goes up, and no, it's 1%. It's per 1%. Vega is per 1% of implied volatility. So basically, per 1% of implied volatility change, the price of the option changes at what amount? So if we look at these, you can kind of see them here. You guys see that? So let's look at one of these. Let's do an example. I think this interface is better for this. So we're looking at there we go. Can you guys see that? Let's look at a call. Hold on a second. Okay, we're gonna look at a call, and then I'm gonna lose my voice. I don't know if we're not really gonna do spreads. They're kind of not important anyways. Well, they are kind of important, but whatever. So let's look at one of these in the money call option. Okay. So up here at the top of the option, we're looking at a 50,000 strike expiring. We're talking at a 50,000 strike expiring on the 7th of May. Okay. It is very illiquid, but you can see the price here is about $4,700, and the mark price is $4,300. The delta is 0.8591, meaning that for every dollar Bitcoin goes up, you can expect the option to go up about $0.8591. The gamma is, oh, that's terrible. The gamma is 0. Something without a gamma of 0. Can you guys see this at all? All right. Try this. Okay, you can see that. Okay, let's look at. Again, we're gonna look at this. This is the 50,000. So we're going back to the 7th of May Deribit options. $50,000 strike. Gamma is basically 0 because the delta is basically 1, close to 1. So remember, the delta can never go above 1. At the highest delta, the options will correlate directly with the price of spot. Remember, right? Because if we get deep into the money, then basically the option is spot. Once you get deep into the money, the options are basically spot. So if you look here, gamma is really low because we still have a pretty high delta. And remember, gamma is the rate of change of delta. Delta is the rate of change of the option, all derived relative to spot. So if we look, actually, I guess it isn't that. Yeah, I mean, it's not that low. I guess it just is really low. Gammas are just always low because it's just one for every $1. It's because the price of Bitcoin is so high also. It's because the price of Bitcoin is so high. Bitcoin is really expensive, so $1 of Bitcoin is virtually nothing. And delta is so low that obviously gamma is small. For Bitcoin to go up $1, it's not going to change the delta by very much. And remember that gamma is the rate of change per dollar, right? So you can expect for every dollar, gamma will go delta will go up 0.00008, meaning that if it goes up 1,000, you can expect it to go up. If Bitcoin goes up 1,000, then the delta goes. You can see here. Let's just do the math. If Bitcoin goes up 2,000. What am I doing wrong? Oh, this is because we're not going up in price. Yeah, so this is going up in price is the price of Bitcoin going up. If Bitcoin went up $2,000 or $1,000, then the delta would go up about 10 cents, something like that. I don't know. $1,000, it would go up about 8 cents. Make sense? Or not, it's not cents, it would just go up 8. It would just go up 0.08. I'm losing my mind here. 1, 2, 3 zeros. 1, 2, 3, 4 zeros. 8 times 1,000. Yeah, 0.08. So for a $1,000 move, delta should go up about 0.08. And it's not in cents, obviously. Okay. That's gamma. We can see theta. Theta is the time decay, negative 276. That means for every day, this option here, $30,000, loses about $277. And yeah, we're done. And then the vega is the implied volatility. Implied volatility is like 80%. And for every 1% implied volatility goes up, the option goes up $14. All right. We're not doing spreads. That's enough. I think people are exhausted. You call it? Let's call it. Yeah, the theta is, yes, I can. So remember how we talked about the value of an insurance plan, for example, being worth more the longer the insurance coverage goes for? So if you buy a car and you buy 3 months of insurance, for example, you're going to pay less for that 3 months than would you pay for a year's worth of insurance. So as time goes on, the time until expiration goes down, meaning there's less time for the coverage to be useful. That means that all other things equal, except time changing, all other things equal, the value of the option will decay to be only eventually at right before expiration or at expiration, the value of the option is all intrinsic and the extrinsic is nothing. So the second the option expires, there is no longer any extrinsic value. It's entirely intrinsic. So the reason the price goes down is because as time goes on, the extrinsic value goes down. In other words, the time for the insurance to be used goes down. So the rate per day that the value of the option goes down from time alone is theta decay. It's theta. For calls, well, for both of them, it's a negative value because it's going down. But in this case, it would be, for this option at 54K, the theta is 286.56, meaning that for every day that goes by, you can expect the value of the option to decrease by $286 from time alone, not from anything else. Assuming all other things equal, it would go down 286. All from the time passage, the passage of time alone. That's it. Are there any options? I have no options. I learned all of this from trading options. I have no idea. I just traded. I read about the Greeks, I guess. I don't know. I don't remember. I studied computer science, so and I'm familiar with calculus and all of that, so that helps. Are you asking? Are you asking genuinely for me to explain it for puts? I mean, it's the same. You can look at the delta over here and see the same thing. It just works in reverse. All right, I'm gonna end this stream for now. Not stream. I'm gonna end this recording. Hang on.